in consciousness. I'm Rick Brooks, and this is Rick's Mind. Today with me, I have guest Lathen Gorbett, documentary filmmaker. What's up, brother?
So, man, how you doing?
Dude, I'm doing well, man. And you, friend of the show, love having you on. And, you know, we've teased at it in the past that you were working on something, and that something, Bridge to Table, is out. And so I think the best place to start is kind of share with our audience what this documentary is about. You know, don't give any spoilers away or anything like that. And then after that, man, I really want to get into the process. So I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah. So Bridge to Table is it's changed what it ended up being a few times because it was a timely project about COVID, or I guess the pandemic and other issues that happened over the last 2 years here in Portland that really took a hit on the business community. And what I was focused on was the food industry. I have a culinary background, so I've always been really close to, or I guess the food industry has always been close to my heart and my wife's heart. And when we saw this thing just taking restaurants out, we obviously were very saddened by it. When we saw like Pok Pok and Bar King and a few of our favorite spots go out under, it was sad. But, we tried to not be selfish about our sadness. We tried to think about like what these people were going through and what they were having to deal with. But it was still sad to see our favorite places go. And then on top of that, we just saw this city getting shit on by people, mostly by people that don't even live here, and by people who live either, in rural Oregon or other parts of the country. And a lot of it had to do with, memes that were being spread around and the coverage by primarily right-wing media that really likes to take its jabs at Portland. And we didn't think that was very helpful for the business community. And we just wanted to play our part. I have some cameras. And so I just went out and started filming and wasn't sure what it was going to be. And it finally found its voice.
It did. So like, you were filming during the pandemic, and what do you think? What were you going to do this documentary about? Like first, and you said it changed. Like what was the original idea, and then it morphed to what it is, which is fucking incredible. But like, what was the original idea, and then why did you decide to pivot?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to do something in food. Right before the pandemic, I had a job interview with one of the local news source or news outlets here to be a multimedia journalist, and I'd be kind of the guy on the ground going out and figuring out, just showcasing what's going on in Portland and create little 3 to 5 minute news, segments about it, and then. It felt like I was going to get hired on to do that. And then I got a call saying, sorry, the parent company has decided to stop all hiring due to this pandemic. And so I was a little bit like, well, shit. But one of the things that they asked me during the interview was, and I think that it landed well with them, is what would you be doing if money didn't matter? And I said, just imagine like Chef's Table meets like what Anthony Bourdain was doing. Like Anthony Bourdain's always been my, I've got him on the wall behind me. He's always been my, kind of, I guess, sort of North Star in terms of like everything he's done. I've been personally influenced in some way by whether it's going to some of the places around the world that he's been to, or accidentally showing up to places and then watching a show and then like, oh shit, we were there. So it's always, and they said, that's a great answer. And so I always knew that I wanted to do like food, culture, travel type stuff. But, I was living near downtown, and we were locked away, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. Our kids were out of school and everything. But then the protests, and actually should say the riots hit. The morning after the first night of the riots, I went down and started filming and taking photos of all the damage that was done and all the plywood going up and everything else that was happening, all the windows broken and spray paint and just everything. And then the second night, I just went down there, and I went down there multiple times and just filmed, got chased by cops, breathed in pepper spray, dodged rubber bullets, saw cinder blocks going through cop car windows, like the whole thing. And I didn't know what I was doing with it. I was just like, I'm just going to film. Even cops even kind of let me off the hook. I think they thought I was media because I wasn't there to like destroy things. I was just there to film.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just kept filming the protests, and I was like, well, we'll just see, what happens. And then as restaurants started to kind of creatively figure out what they were going to do, I just kind of started filming that. And then one day I was like, well, why don't we just go get some interviews? Like, I've run a podcast before where I interviewed restaurateurs. I know how to talk the language. And so I just started setting up interviews, still not knowing what it was going to be. I thought I was going to do like an 8-part docuseries about COVID and about how Portland has managed the events the last 2 years through the events of the food industry. That was my elevator pitch. And then we started getting to the end. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who does film work as well, and he kind of had sort of a hard talk with me, like the same way you've done, Rik, where it's basically like, dude, we've heard enough talk. Why don't you just put this thing together and get it out there? And nobody is going to give a shit about COVID in a couple months. This thing, masks are coming off, things are. So I was like, well, that's true. So basically what I ended up doing is cramming it all into one episode. It's called the past 2 years. It's the pilot episode. And then the next 2 episodes are going to be restaurants that closed. Next one's going to be restaurants that open. And that's going to be our off ramp to COVID. And then from there, it's just going to be a show about segments of the Portland food scene. So that's kind of the arc.
Yeah, no, that's gonna, because it's so important, because in our conversations about this art piece, you have to address the elephant in the room. You have to address COVID, but food. You found a way to capture the way that food makes you feel, the way that a restaurant makes you feel. Like, that is what you're trying to do. I think it's what you've done, and it's what you're only going to, it's so fun. And it's a very unique niche show. And I love it. I love it. And what's so exciting to me is, where does this lead? I think that a lot of doors are going to begin to open to you because of the hard work that you've done. And it has been a pleasure watching this whole thing take form. Just all the hard work that you put into this. And it wasn't always easy. So, I mean, I gotta ask, what do you think was your hardest day filming then? How many moments do you think you had where like, what the fuck am I doing? And why am I doing this?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I had one of those days, I'm filming for episode 2 and I don't have a crew right now. I'm looking to get this thing funded. And sometimes, Graham Dale, who's credited he's one of the cinematographers, directors of cinematography for the project. He was gracious enough to come out and help, and he's very talented. He's got a lot of great equipment. And so he was willing to come out and help me so far for free. And he was also willing to donate. So any of the drone footage you see in there is, not mine. And so, like, today, I'm filming a follow-up conversation with Nate Tilden, who's the owner of Clyde Common, Bar Casa Valle, Spirit of 77, Olympia Provision. So he's a restaurateur. I think he's got like 13 restaurants or something under his name. And, he was a major part of the first episode, but as a follow-up, we always said, we're going to do another episode because we filmed the last one in the restaurant that he closed, Clyde Common. And today we filmed in the restaurant that is still doing well, which is Bar Casa Valle. And, I've got cameras pointed at both of us while him and I are sitting down eating chorizo and, drinking wine and talking. And my camera keeps shutting off. One of my cameras keeps shutting. So I keep going to check it and it's off. And I'm like, shit, I don't even know how much I lost. So days like that are the hardest, days where you're a one-man crew trying to bring production value and you're having these technical glitches that just come out of nowhere. So that's the hardest part about this, is when you're trying to make something high quality and you're doing it by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a 2-man band or 3-man band over here. Can relate to the technical glitches though, like losing footage or whatever. Like that is the most heart-wrenching thing ever, because you never get it back. And sometimes it's fucking gold that you lose and you're just like, what? Yeah. Like I've almost broken a few computers just losing shit, man. Like it's hazards of the job though, isn't it?
It is, and you try to stay really organized. A lot of documentaries will have they'll have a lot of people working on them, or they'll have, or a lot more than this, or they'll have, sort of a linear subject matter. Like these are your subjects that you're interviewing. This is your, here's all your B-roll. Where with this one, it's, we shot in I think I got footage from 15 or 20 different restaurants, 9 different subjects or something like that. And shot over the course of time. So it was all logged very strange. So sometimes I'm having to go back through my hard drives and I know I've got a photo. I know I've got an image of that somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's go find it. One of the images from a winery is from some video I shot at my friend's wedding. And I was like, what would look really good there is a shot of a winery. So I scrubbed through and found the shot. And so, yeah, I guess it's just trying to stay organized and produce a high quality product or high quality, final delivery and making it look professional. While in the background, I'm sweating bullets. The day I was rendering it, getting ready to post it on YouTube, I realized I had 4 typos. I quit reading the text, and one of them was the day that the protest started. I had it as March 27th. It started in May. And I was like, wait, that almost went out like that, And, one of the Olympia provisions, I had it spelled Olympic provisions instead. I was just, so I was just staring at the screen for so long that I wasn't spending enough time looking at the text. So, I think just lack of crew. I really when you see those credits come up at the end of a documentary or a show or something, you're like, Jesus, there's really that many people that worked on that thing. Now I see why.
Yeah, you definitely do. One of the things that I've always found interesting about films, we sit down, we consume it. But you mentioned that you are looking for different shots. I don't know if I have the brain to, or the amount of attention to detail that is required to really stitch together a story. All right, which is why I do podcasts, because I just it's the easiest. I'm just sitting here talking. There's I'm guiding a conversation in a sense, yeah. But literally sitting down, recording footage, and then cutting from one conversation to next and making it flow smoothly. Where do you start? I've always wondered that. Where do you start?
Well, and I'm going to sound, any person that's out there that's done this for longer than me is going to probably recognize my lack of experience. But, there's some people go on what's called just a 3-act structure, right? Where, past, present, future, or whatever, right? Kind of a linear story arc. I always like to start with the present first, and then move into the past, and then go into the future. And I like the tone of things. This one started out with somebody talking about Portland's, it's got its troubles, but we're picking it up, But there was this one format that I just kind of drew up, and I just drew an basic outline, and then I went to town and tried to find the clips to support that outline. And it's ended up being 20 minutes with credits, and had I not cut it down, it would have been like an hour and a half. So, I mean, I just trim and trim and trim, and you just, what they call killing your darlings. Sometimes you have to let stuff go that you wish you didn't, and you just trim it down to the least amount of the least amount that you need in order to drive the story forward. And there were times where I watched it and I thought, is this arc the right way, or am I just staring at the screen, this editing screen, for too long? There were some parts that I left in that I wasn't sure was going to resonate, but they worked for me, so I left them in. But at the end of the day, I decided to tell a 20-minute story a 2-year story inside of 20 minutes. One example would be the houselessness situation, the tents and everything around Portland. That was something that could have been covered. I was going to cover it. I had the footage, I had the interviews and everything else to cover it, and the B-roll, the imagery. But what I didn't have is a confidence in my level of expertise in order to add that to the story in a constructive way that wouldn't potentially offend some people. Because that's the last thing I want to do is do anything that's going to offend people that are so vulnerable, And so I was looking for a kind of a consultant, somebody who could walk me through and make sure I'm getting my wordage right, make sure that I'm being, I think I'm being sensitive, but sometimes you miss it. You miss something and you don't realize that, that thing is actually really hurtful. And so I just realized, let's just drop that. I don't need to talk about it. Maybe it's probably going to be brought up later. It is a part of Portland. So yeah, that and like the smoke, the fires that we had, that year, that really hurt restaurants too. I just didn't have any footage of it. Mm-hmm. But ironically, it was during the fires that I got that's when I got really defensive for Portland. And that really kind of lit a fire, no pun intended, under my ass to get making something, because I just saw the comments that were coming out around that fire. We could discuss that if you want, but so anyway, yeah, I was just, my process is very sloppy.
Well, you cut yourself some slack, man. Like you did it. You fucking did it. You've released it. It's out there, yeah. And it's doing very, very well. It's doing well, and that's all you can ask for. Like you're doing great. You keep trending up, keep getting more views. Like it's going to turn into something. Mm-hmm. and the thing is, like, I'm sure that you're a lot like me, but maybe I'm not a perfectionist by any means, but I do take pride in the work that I do. And so you're going to probably look at this with a fine tooth comb and be like, God damn it, I should have done this. But dude, you're going to get better. You've got more episodes to make. It's only going to get better. And if you look at from the level at which and the time that you took to release this and the product that you delivered, it's fantastic. Whereas I went a different route. I just took a shotgun and I just keep talking. I keep talking into the microphone and spitting things out into the deep, dark void that is the internet, and hope that something sticks. You did it in a very strategic way. You found a niche. You found something that you're very, very passionate about, and you found a community that is going to value the work that you do because you're shining a light and telling their stories. The restaurant industry is the most bizarre, awesome industry that ever exists, in my opinion. It's full of derelicts. It's full of so many creative people. Derelicts, like I have some buddies that are chefs, so that's what I mean by that. But it's just full of these crazy people that make amazing food, and they work weird hours, and they stick together, and it's something that we're all fascinated by, because most people that are in that industry exit it pretty quickly, but some people that are crazy enough just stay. And there's we had Aaron Franco, chef. John, I forget the name of the restaurant. You pull that up. Aaron Franco, I can't remember it. It's a really nice restaurant, son of a bitch. Anyways, he he's let me know about doing exchange programs in different countries, like just knowing about a chef walking into his restaurant, like, hey, can I cook for you for a few weeks? Yeah, that's fine. I'll do it for free just to learn. Like, I did not know that was a thing. And that's like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that the more that we can be exposed to that industry and all of its secrets, the better off we're all going to be. And because there's a lot of stories to tell there. Go ahead, John.
It's the Metropolitan Tavern in Portland.
Yeah, it's good. It's at the top of a hotel. It's pretty. Check it out. It's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, and I love that, you're already thinking about sliding in other elements that maybe you're going to find a way to relate it to food, but you're going to slide in other elements to tell that story, right? Like, the continuation of the great man that is behind the wall, Bourdain, right? Like that's why you're doing this. You want to be in that category. I've known you forever. You're not going to do anything half-assed. You're going to figure out a way to get there. Of that, I'm 100% confident.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if was that a question?
No, I was just
okay. No. You're waiting for me to respond.
I went on a tangent.
Keep talking about me.
Yeah, it's weird here to have people say good things about you all the time, isn't it?
It is.
We should.
I never take it well.
That's good. I do. You ever wish that you could talk to yourself nicely more? Like, other people share nice things. That's the one thing I am. We don't need to turn this into a therapy session, but I am pretty fucking hard on myself, like too hard. And I feel like sometimes, I think all of us are, but that sometimes slows our creative process, and it slows. Like, I think it can almost hamstring. It's definitely hamstrung me in several situations where I couldn't progress because I was like maybe scared or just in my own head,
I mean, that's why it took me a year longer than it should have to put this podcast or this episode out.
Yeah.
But it's me on that, and just, it is, I really try to take it from a journalistic standpoint. I'm trying to, as much as possible, is take it from a journalistic standpoint, which is tell their story, not mine. But I don't really think there's any such thing as a truly objective story. So, you have my, editing choices and my flow, and that's all there. There's where the subjectivity comes in. So when I see like one of the sort of intro montage of the episode, that's I made that, and I never got it as good as I wanted it. Like I just didn't have time to make it as good as I wanted to. So at some point you just got to put it out there, let the audience, and then get on to the next one, right? Let the audience see it. Either it'll be received well or not, and I got to get on to the next thing. I heard one of the first things I heard early on when I was in school for multimedia journalism was, you're never going to be fully satisfied with anything you do. And I am satisfied with what I put out there. Do I want it to improve and get better? Of course. You go back and look at some of the early Anthony Bourdain episodes, and, the cameras are pretty choppy. They didn't have the best. It was also because it's older, so they didn't have as good of cameras. But as the show progressed, they got more money. And, of course, then when CNN picked him up and turned into Parts Unknown, he had incredible cameras. But, I see this as a first of, for being the first thing and having pretty much no crew. Just like I said, Graham was very helpful, but I'm satisfied with where it ended up. For as short a time as I've been doing this, I'm satisfied.
Yeah, that's amazing. And this is project 1 done. Now you're on to project 2. Do you have a time frame for getting that one out? Is like how this has got to be time consuming with all the editing and the shooting. So like realistically, what would be your goal for getting this series? Like how often could you potentially put these series out?
If I can get it funded, I'd like to put out 2 a month, but I don't think the next one will be finished and ready to go till July. Because again, it's me. I've got clients, I'm doing some commercial work, and then I've got meetings to pitch this thing and try to get it funded. So and then building out the website and getting everything else going while going out there and shooting. So there's probably going to be 4 to 6 weeks between episodes right now. And I'd like to turn that into 2.
Okay.
Eventually.
I mean, that would be, I'm just thinking about the man hours, because that's that's ambitious. I love that. I definitely think you could do it 100%.
Well, especially if I get a format. I've got a format in my mind, which is not like the first episode. The first episode is going to be a bit different than some of the others. Stylistically, I think it'll be the same. You'll still kind of get those tones, but in terms of structure, you create a structure. That's why, name a show that, The Bachelor, right? Or whatever, they have a format, they plug it in and they move on to the next thing. Right. And not that I want to be in that space necessarily, but, there's a show called Street Food on Netflix, which I really like their format, because they'll go into like Singapore or wherever, Bangkok, and they'll focus on the street food of that city. And there's usually one main person that they focus on, and then they'll have 2 or 3 sort of sub characters for the episode. And so that's probably the approach that I'm going to take, is get that one main interview. And then just, again, like if I do an episode on farm to table, Greg Higgins of Higgins Restaurant has agreed to be a part of that episode. And then I'll find maybe a purveyor, maybe like a pig farmer, and I'll find whatever, fill in the blank, maybe another small bistro that's a little bit less well known, or a food cart that does farm to table, and then try to pull that whole thing together by bringing those characters together, but having the one character be, so I guess the point I'm making is, with a format like that, you could be shooting for an episode 3 months out now and just locking in the kind of like sales. You did sales, right? For a while. You got a sales pipeline, and, in sales, you always want to have that, the deal that you're going to close down the road already in your pipeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to you don't want to start looking for the deal that you're going to close right now. You start looking for the deal you're going to close down the road. So same thing, like with my work pipeline is, let's start filming not just the things for the next episode, but for the things down the road as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think, like, are you trying to keep this on YouTube, like the whole bridge to table, or would you be open to moving it somewhere else if you were able to find the right suitors?
I don't know. I don't really know what that looks like. I like putting it on YouTube right now because I can get it sponsored by groups of my choice, and it's easy to find. The algorithm, I think, supports, search pretty well if it's tagged well. But, of course, if something like a Hulu picked it up, it'll be off of YouTube that day. But you know what I mean? But it depends on who's paying me. If Travel Portland wants to pay me for 5 episodes of this, and they can embed that YouTube link on their sites, and either PDX or whoever wants to throw a link up on there, YouTube might be the way to keep it right now. Because I'm trying to do sponsorships because I guess ultimately one of the things that I decided to make, this is not part of your question, but one of the reasons I decided to make this was in defense of the images that Portland was getting from these memes and media and things. So if Travel, I use them as an example because I know they're trying that, their initiative is to bring more people into Portland and to showcase what Portland has to offer. Well, that's what I'm doing too. So it would be a good partnership for me to, and I wouldn't have to pivot. Mm-hmm. There might be some creative control in terms of like, hey, why don't we not do an episode on heroin use downtown? Okay, we don't really want to pay for that one. And I'd be like, okay, I don't really want to go make that episode either. Let somebody else make it. But you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have to pivot my values or my ethics if Travel Oregon or Travel Portland or the Downtown Portland Association or whoever, the city of Portland, wanted to pay me to keep making these things.
Yeah, you're trying to clean up the image of the city. Why does that? Why did those things piss you off so much? Like you made a film about this.
Well, I've been in Portland. So I grew up in, where I grew up in Molalla, Oregon, which is, for people who don't know, is a small little, redneck town outside of, or about 45 minutes outside of Portland. But it's got this, like I always just saw it as like this cultural bubble, right? It's like there's such a disconnect. For being 45 minutes away, there's such a cultural disconnect between Portland and Molalla. But I had my best friend lived in Portland. So I would go to 36 and Hawthorne, that we'd go hang out on Belmont, we go hang out in Northwest, and we ride the bus around and skate around town, and then I go back to the place where I was from, which is very different than Portland. And I guess I always just felt like I connected with it more than I connected with the place that I actually lived. And then when I moved here, I just felt like I just put my roots down here. And so I don't know. It was like I didn't think that. I feel like the media and a lot of people on Facebook with their just touting and wanting to bitch and moan or whatever, and just have something to like stir up their friends with. It was just opportunistic, and it was at the risk of these businesses that were really, really working their asses off to do great things. And as you may agree, I think food is the cornerstone of any culture. And so when you go, and it's not like we have like ribs, like that's, or whatever, fill in the blank. We don't have this thing that is Portland food. Portland food is all food.
Yep.
Right. So if you don't have, I feel like if you don't have something, just one thing, single thing to bind to, and we had food trucks, which not only was a nice cultural thing for people to, for Portland to kind of bind itself to, or be bound to, even though the food's all different, it's kind of, it's food trucks. People can relate to that. Fortunately, a lot of food trucks did really well during the pandemic because they were takeout, and, they didn't require seating, or if they did, they could seat outside and things like that. But I don't know. I just felt like it was just inappropriate for, these are people. Portland, like any other city, is just a bunch of people. And I like to think that most of which, namely in the food industry, are good people trying to contribute something good. And they're taking a loss, both in terms of image and revenue, for them and their employees, by getting shit on by people that aren't part of this community. When you have a major news outlet that's just showing the same huddled group of people with masks on burning a flag in the middle of a street, that one event took 2 minutes and there was 100 days of protests. But you want to show the same fire over and over and over again, and we want to call them Antifas or whatever, and you want to misconstrue what the whole thing is, when 6 blocks away there's a row of food cart pods that are not being damaged, and they're just wanting people to come by and feel safe enough to come by and eat their food so that they can pay their rent. It's just, that was my defense for the whole thing. So I started out a little bit bitter, but I grew optimistic. I grew optimistic because the restaurateurs, so many of them are optimistic.
You have to be.
I found my optimism again in the people that were being affected. Some of the people that were being, not the most, but a lot. They're being affected a lot.
Yeah, they're. I'm really glad you did it. There's two ways to look at what happened, right? I'll go on the two stories. There's the the positive way, which is, this is my city. This is where I'm from. I love this place. Yes, we're flawed, but aren't we all? Right? We can fix this. We can figure this out. We can move forward. We can get better. Right? And then there's the way that I looked at it, which is the wrong way, which is, fuck yes. Property values going down. No.
Which it didn't.
I know, it went up. I was like, maybe people are going to be moving out of here. Maybe the state will be evacuated. This is going to be awesome. That's not the case. I think I've now switched to the optimist, because I really do think that, I think that, like, I've been downtown, like at the height of the P word, won't even say it anymore, and it was ridiculous. And I've been downtown since then, and it's getting better. The city is getting cleaner. They are cleaning up, because for a while there, it wasn't like super. I'm a pretty big guy, so I'm not too afraid. Like, yeah, there's definitely some alleys I wouldn't have wanted to go down, but just like looking at all the tents was like kind of upsetting to me. I don't think that like that's a good. It's not good for anybody, any parties. It's not good for us to see that and like to just be like, it's a kind of a violation of a social contract that we all have signed as people, and it's not good. The sanitation of that's not good for those people as well. So something needs to be done, and I think we're going to figure that out for sure. I do think that we're going to figure it out.
Well, and I agree. And I think that there's a lot of ways to look at the houselessness situation. And I agree. I don't think it's good for anybody for us to provide provide an opportunity for somebody who's, mentally ill, standing in the middle of Second and Burnside screaming at the buildings while traffic is going by.
Yeah.
I don't think that's good for anybody. So I don't think it's good for them. For us, so I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not even going to try to tackle that one. But the thing that I've noticed, so I think that the city does seem like it's getting cleaner. I went down there one time, about a year ago, and I remember walking down, and I was like, okay, there's no denying that this smells like piss and shit, and there's garbage everywhere. This is not good. And then I went down there like 3 weeks later, and it was like, or not 3 weeks later, 3 months later. And I was like, oh, something's different. This is getting cleaned up. Something's happening right now, and I don't know what it is. But the thing about Portland is it's just small, right? And you have the downtown is the same part of town where those tents are at, and where a lot of that kind of stuff that you see is at. Where you go to somewhere like LA, and like that stuff exists in a part of town that tourists don't really go to. I remember first time I was in Paris, we took a train out of Paris. And, it's Paris. It's like the most beautiful city in the world.
100%.
And we're taking a train out of there, and there's graffiti everywhere. And you go through some of the neighborhoods, and they're relatively clean, but like, I was like, oh, okay, so this is everywhere. And so when I hear people complain about like, oh, there's this, homeless person, peeing on something downtown, I'm like, Portland's always, as far back as I can remember, has always been like that. And so I don't know if people are expecting it to turn into something that's cleaner and better than what it was before the pandemic, but maybe we were just kind of blind to it before the pandemic because we didn't have all this time and energy to sit here and focus on all these problems the same way. But I don't know. I just think that, like, I spoke to somebody today, and he's had his restaurant broken into multiple times. A lot of restaurant owners have, or just, glass being broken, or just stuff, people going in and stealing shit. And one of the things though is there's only a few parts of town where people tend to genuinely feel unsafe. So it's not really a matter of safety. It's more of a matter of just looking bad, because it's like, people breaking in and stealing something. Like, I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't feel very unsafe, and I go into most parts of town. I know there are parts of town that are not safe, But for the most part, I just don't think that safety should really be the issue. And the people who are choosing not to come to Portland because of what they see on the F word news channel, they shouldn't, come down. Like they can Google search Portland neighborhoods. Like, I think that's a good way to do it. Neighborhoods in Portland to check out. That way you don't have to go to Old Town if you don't want to go to Old Town, or you don't have to go to this other part. You can go to Alberta or Mississippi or, wherever. You can just go to the part of town that you want to go to. And you can see that like neighborhoods are thriving in a lot of ways right now. I don't know. The food scene to me feels like it's doing really well. Like, I'm excited about a lot of the things that are happening in the city right now.
Is First Thursdays, is that back?
Yep.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, because that was shut down for a while. Yeah, First Thursdays, that's like a kind of like a street fair type deal where there's food and you can buy paintings and farmers.
Yeah, you buy art on the street. It goes all the way down 13th and Northwest. It's a great time. I was down there last month for First Thursday, and no, it's great. And most of the city is just, it kind of feels like it's getting back on track.
I think
there's
so.
Just changes. But most of the changes are not the changes that are going to affect the people that are going down, the patrons, right? It's not going to affect, the changes don't affect me as the customer. The changes affect the business owner. So there's certain things like, since the pandemic too, like we've not so much anymore, but at one point, we accepted a little bit less quality on the food delivered, right? Because they might only have one cook trying to just knock this out so they can pay their lease and keep the lights on and whatever. So some stuff might come out a little cold. So accepting that, and still going and just supporting these places, tipping a little higher is something that we adopted over the pandemic because, these servers and cooks and stuff need a little extra heads, because even though, there's one of them, there's a lot less people coming in. And then just slower service. Most restaurants that I've noticed have a bit slower service right now. So just give them a break. Let them just they're having a hard time getting this stuff out to you, and they can't afford the waste that they once maybe could have a little bit more. They can't afford the staff, or there's not staff coming on. That's the biggest problem in Portland right now, is that I've heard from every restaurant owner is we cannot hire enough people. Nobody wants to come back to work, or not enough people want to come back to work. So I think a lot of the people that were working in the restaurant industry, because it was some flexible hours with a high-paced environment and good money for the hours you worked, I think it feels like a lot of those folks probably didn't come back, and the people that remained are the people that work in restaurants because they fucking love restaurants, So those people came back.
Yeah.
So employing people is really challenging right now for restaurants. So you might go in and you'd be like, man, the service here is slow, but they might have half the kitchen staff that they need, but they're doing the best they can. Or some restaurants will just stop seating people because the chef says, we cannot have another table right now because we'll compromise service,
Wow, I did not know that was going down.
Yeah, it's a major issue. Servers, like people can't get servers. So like Nate Tilden, the guy who owns Clyde Common and stuff, he was a welder back in the day, or, builder, and he's back to his roots. He's back building things for his kitchen, and he's cooking. He's on the front line of his restaurant. He's on the line of his restaurant, being a line cook again. This guy's, one of the more impactful restaurateurs over the course of the last 20 years in Portland, and he's a line cook again.
Just can't find a cook.
No, and he loves it. Fortunately, he being a cook is something he loves, but it kind of forced him back to his roots, and I admire that. Because one of the things I asked him is like, and I don't really want to paraphrase his answer because I have to go back and watch the footage, but like, why would you choose to do this? It's a little easier to throw in the towel, or it makes good logical sense. Like Andy Ricker of Pok Pok, he was one of the first restaurants to close down. But I interviewed Andy while I was in Chiang Mai. And he alluded to the fact that he was kind of waiting for he didn't say this so much, but I got the impression that he was looking forward to the opportunity to move to Chiang Mai and just live there and stop being a restaurateur in America. I don't think he's done forever, but he's, some people saw an off ramp. The Paleys, from what I hear, Paley's place, I've heard people say that, they were looking for, they were willing to accept the off ramp.
Wow.
They're older, they're getting ready to retire. But like Sarah Schroeder of Mother's Bistro, I don't know how old she is, but she's old enough. I think she's close to old enough to retire anyway. She could take the out, but she's not. It's just. I don't even know what the question was. Why I went on this tangent.
No, that's what it's all about, man. Is the tangents and the spirit. I think because I was pretty lost in seeing the passion, but I believe we were kind of talking about oh boy, how did we get here? I asked you, well, what pissed you off? Why did you make this film? And then we went a whole bunch of places, but
I can share one story with you.
Please do.
It's off the restaurant path, but it's one of the things that really, so you might be able to relate to this because I know your brother worked on a project that helped distribute resources out to people while the wildfires were going on last summer.
Yep.
So I remember seeing all these people talk about Antifas out there burning down Malala, right? And I was like, first of all, what is an Antifa? Like, what is this thing you guys are saying is a thing? I'm not denying that but it's kind of made it's borderline fictitious, but they, people would post something up that said BLM on it. Black Lives Matters is out here burning down our woods. And I'm like, Bureau of Land Management, dude, come on. Or like people would post stuff like they're out here tagging our stuff. I'm like, that's a pretty like a professional looking tag. But there was this one where this lady posted a thing saying, my husband just saw some Antifa out trying to catch a fire to some hay bales, and my husband chased him off. Well, so apparently it was in like this maroon Lexus or Acura or something, and it was I guess a couple people with masks on. Well, I was watching online. I was just watching this thing unfold. This is when I basically decided to get off of Facebook before. But I was watching people that I knew, people I was related to, people, just all these people like going nuts about like this Antifa out there doing this, and that people were practically calling for the execution of whoever's driving this maroon. People were driving around with guns in the woods trying to find this maroon car. That maroon car, from what I understand, but I don't know if I have everything perfect with it, but what it turned out to be was one of the people's from Malala. They were journalists that were working the protests and the riots, and that's why they had gas masks, and they were wearing masks out to film the fires because they were going into fucking fires. So they were wearing masks.
Yeah.
So these people, their lives could have been compromised. Like they could have been shot by somebody or beat up or something like that because of this misconstruing of information when everybody's going crazy on Facebook. And that's really what kind of sparked something in me to like, okay, I don't know what I got to do, but I need to get out there and just start recording this and figure out where the story is going to take me. And it took me to a different place. But anyway, that's the one of the sparks that fueled me. As I just watched this, I was like, man, you guys have no clue what's happening here. You guys are just bored, fired up, watching too much Fox News, and you own guns and trucks.
You're harping. You're very critical.
It's just not a healthy. I mean, it's not even like left or right. I'm not even taking it's not even because you and I have talked about it. I have I'm very opinionated, which I try to keep on the, I try not to let my opinions come out too strongly. They don't really seem to be helpful when they do, but I have a lot of problems with people with a lot of things that happen on my side of the aisle too.
Yeah.
But that there was annoying, and then there was dangerous.
Yes.
And to me, that kind of language is dangerous. And so anyway, that's my stance on it.
It's a sickness of the mind. I've done a lot of thinking about this recently because I was very, very focused on the crazies of the left. And then I got introduced to the crazies of the right. And so I think the left, I feel like this is vast generalization. But the left generally, like, they're very politically correct, which is kind of annoying. They're like, some of them are crazy. They might not understand certain things from like maybe a more rural point of view, whatnot. And so we'll haggle over and fight over issues like that. But for the most part, it's like they're causes for causes. They love. So it's 1 month it's BLM, then it's Ukraine, then it's just, you're going to change your social media. You're going to be a social media revolutionary and let people know that you're a good person. So that's like my issue with that side, right? Then you have the right. I didn't realize how fucking crazy the right got until I had a buddy that met someone that was like full Q. And I didn't think that was real. I was like, there's no way.
No, this person, very real.
Oh, it is. I have photo. I have photo evidence. He sent me pictures of this. This is as one of his coworkers. This person will remain nameless. One of his coworkers brought in a folder because he's a lot like me, to where if I find out someone is crazy, I'm really not going to try and correct you. I'm going to get you talking, and I'm going to agree with you because I need to know how crazy you are. Plus, maybe there's some credence. I'm into weird stuff, so maybe we'll find some. But I'm not going to shame you. I'm just going to. But he called me and said, I may be taking this too far, man. She brought in a folder today. And I was like, what? So he sent me pictures of all the shit that this lady believes. And I was like, this is real? And he's like, yes, dude, this is real. There are people. And I feel like again, vast generalizations. I do feel like the right potentially might do stuff. They may have a bit more of a purpose. And then, left as well. There's Antifa. They're all crazy. Like I'm Antifa. I'm pretty sure it's real.
Antifa's not really a left.
It's not. That's fair. They're crazy, but there are crazies on both sides. But like what I was trying to get back to is like I think it's like a disease of the mind. I think that, and there are credences throughout all of history about just how crazy people, like when you like, fear is the mind killer. And when you start getting afraid of something, or you feel that your safety or your family's safety or whatever, and then you link that to an ideology, like the amount of like terrible things that have been caused throughout history because of that, because of the fear of the other, is crazy. I mean, if you think about the Bushido code of the Japanese soldiers in World War II, and not all of them were like crazy fanatical, but like that whole society was prepared to, like, some of the propaganda was going around was 100 million souls giving their lives for the cause. Like that is what we were up against. Like the war against imperial Japan or Nazi Germany was like it fought over an ideology of like pushed to the fucking extreme. Now, granted, there were people in both of those societies that didn't like what was going on, but what I'm saying is like there is precedence like for that fear of the other, like just how far it can go. And I truly do believe that it is a bit of a sickness of your mind. It's something that like, it's like a contagion, right? Like I kind of like have been subscribing to that theory a little bit more. And I don't know if there's any scientific backing behind it.
It's true. I mean, if you believe that the people with the, on the other side of the political aisle are doing ungodly things to children and ought to be killed, like this is, we've stepped over some lines.
Pizzagate?
You know,
Pizzagate is what you're talking about?
Pizzagate. I mean, that's one of the, original ones. But I mean, that, I wouldn't even go down that rabbit hole unless you want to just toxify your brain. But it's just a disgusting, like, it's just, to me, I saw that whole thing like a video game. It's like people who get so entrenched in video games that they, but the difference is this is one where these people actually thought it was real. It's like a role playing game, but the problem was that people didn't know that they were playing a game. Yeah. You had people that actually thought that this was real when all they are is just playing a game called QAnon. And I hate to beat people up about it, but I mean, it takes a certain level of feeble-mindedness to like allow yourself to go down there. And I'm not saying that every person needs to be strong of mind, but I find it terrible when these kinds of things, or cults, or there's a lot of things like that, right? It's very cultish when these things grab onto vulnerable people who don't know any better and convinces them. Well, it's like the problem I've always had with multi-level marketing is it like convinces people that they not only can be an entrepreneur, but if it convinces them that they are an entrepreneur, and then it convinces them that they are something of real value to the company, as if they are an executive because they have the word next to their name, right? It's like QAnon was like, it gave people that charge of like, oh my gosh, I know something that the rest of the people in my family don't know. So therefore I'm like leveling up every time I get on and I get these, cue drops or whatever. And I hear what all the stuff on YouTube that people are saying, it gives them that same sense of like empowerment that they probably don't get at other places in their lives. So it was very, very sad to me to see that happening.
Yeah.
But there's a point where it just needed to go away. It just needed to go away. It was so dark. Anyway, I'm just glad that, that's one of the reasons I turned off. I turned off it's back on now, but I turned off my Facebook right before the last election actively. I knew I was going to be doing it. I was like, no matter what happens on election night, my Facebook goes off.
Oh, that was a smart move.
No matter what happens, I just don't want to see anything or hear anything about what everybody thinks anymore. Yeah. And, I'm way less politically active now. I mean, it's so nice because for the first time in my adult life, I'm not politically engaged that much. And I'm sure I will be back at some point. But
no, you
right
shouldn't.
now, my activism is in what I'm doing with this project. That's my activism.
That's a good point. That's a good place to put that energy, because I mean, honestly, like, I really just don't think any of it matters. I mean, it does matter, but I try not to let politics affect my life. I just moved to a new neighborhood. I got a lovely new home, and I was meeting my neighbors, and one of the neighbors that I'd met walked up to me, and we were talking about other neighbors, and she's like, this guy down the street, he's a nice guy, but he's a Trumper. And I was like, why the fuck do I need to know that? And like, why do you like, are you like, bitch, maybe I voted for Trump. I did. But, like, are you just assuming that because I'm black that I'm a Democrat? Like, I mean, like, what, like, why this person doesn't have to be on, he's a human. Like, I don't care who he voted for. What I care about is like, is he a nice person? Is he going to steal my shit? Right. So that's kind of where I'm at. Go ahead, John.
May I offer a thought to that?
Yes, please.
Have you considered that maybe they're not telling you that he's a Trumper because, like, they don't like his I mean, they probably don't like his politics, but like as like a political thing, but more as they see you as a black man, and they are making an assumption that is inherently racist that, you need to know these things, but they might be telling you because the extreme Trump person might be, racist and could be a danger to you.
Oh, dog. Listen, maybe that's just them trying to be kind. I wasn't offended by it, but I try to not get into any political thing. I don't want to I hate both sides equally. And I don't want to take any sides.
And if I could add to what John was just saying, I think one of the things too, and the unfortunate thing is Trump or like Trumpists or whatever you want to call them, Trump's, the diehards, oftentimes and not always, it's not like you're saying they're a Republican. When they're that deep, where they identify deeply with their support for Donald Trump, unfortunately, there's a high enough percentage, and let's say it's 15%. Let's say I think it's higher, but even if I think it's probably closer to 40%. But of those people are probably they probably have some other personality traits and qualities that are probably things that we assume that a lot of people want to kind of look out for.
And I call them MAGA chuds.
MAGA chuds?
Yeah, I think that might be a Twitter or internet term.
But it's like if you have a guy that's like next door and he's got a basement and he's wearing tinfoil hats all the time and he runs out in his underwear and he's got a shotgun in his hand all the time. If you got one of those kind of guys, you're probably going to be like, hey, dude down the road's really nice, but watch out. He just comes out and fires a shotgun in the sky once in a while. Like, you'd probably just be like, hey. And so for some people, there are a lot of people in that super strong Trump base that do kind of feel a little bit like that to some people.
Well, there's two things. The guy that's firing the shotgun, is he firing it to bring property values down? Because if he is, then maybe him and I could have some sort of friendship. I think that's a great idea. Once a month, we do that to bring the property. Anyways, but that being said, I see what you guys are saying. I totally disagree with you. I think it was ridiculous. I don't want you to try and skew me. There was the statement, he's a nice guy, but like, I would like to figure out maybe why he feels that way, right? Because listen, like, this is it. We are teetering on a very dangerous ledge here of getting fully political. That we're not going to do it. Hold on. Hold on. But what I was trying to say was, I want to know, like, again, what kind of human being this person is. And I don't want, I want to take the opportunity to figure out, like, why he voted for this person, because, like, to be honest, I know a lot of things have changed, but gas is like $7 a gallon, and that's not tenable. And there's
but $7 a gallon gas doesn't justify, supporting
no, definitely not
genocide against minority populations.
Well, what do you mean genocide? Oh, we're in dangerous territory. We're gonna have to back this.
No,
up.
I mean, like, to kind of like to add to what Lathen is saying as well. Like, you have, every person has their own unique experience. But if somebody's making a generalization based on your appearance, they're probably going to think that you have had somewhat of a typical Black experience as it comes to politics or people's treatment of you based on your ethnicity, right? So if they're doing that, like, as somebody who is a member of a community that is marginalized, having gone around Oregon, it's not as friendly as you think. There are friendly people, like persons, but like culturally, it's extremely white. It's extremely a very certain type of white. It's extremely hetero. It's extremely cis. There are pockets of Oregon that are very, regardless of political leanings on issue to issue, are very open and very thoughtful and progressive thinking. But the majority of the state is can be closed-minded, and generally it runs, with the Trump train as well.
Lathen?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, I'll circle back to the video, to the episode. One of the things that I was glad that came through through a journalistic, I didn't have to force this through editing, was the different people all had a different viewpoint on what the the protests were. They and the two people in the video that were the most critical of some of the actions and the protests themselves were people of color. So I was just glad to see that one of the things I was trying to portray in that was there's a lot of ways to look at these things,
Yes.
right? And a lot of them are probably, I don't want to say everything has validity to it, because we do know that QAnon exists, but we have to there's something that I really tried to make sure that I did with this project, and I will do moving forward, is I don't think it helps to deny that Portland doesn't look very good in a lot of areas right now. I think if you try to do that, you put on these rose-colored glasses and talk about the city as if it's perfect, then you just sound like you're not in tune with. You sound, like
you're not living in reality.
Yeah, and I think so. I think it's important to say, yes, this is a problem. We do see it. It's there, but come on now, that's not all there is to it.
No,
there's a lot more to it.
It's not all there is to it. So tell the good people where they can watch this and where they need to share all the socials, everything, brother.
Yeah. So the easiest way to find it right now is to go to the Instagram or the Facebook, but really the Instagram. I'm not really active on Facebook with it, but Instagram is at Bridge to Table. The link to the first episode is in the bio. Once I get the website built, it'll be easier to find that way. But for now, because even if you search it on YouTube, I don't know if it even comes up yet. I haven't tried to search for it incognito, but
we'll link it to the show notes too.
Okay. Yeah, because of how the algorithm works, and it's still a new video, a new channel and everything, it might be hard to find even. But so I think just go to Instagram, Bridge to Table, link is in the bio, and follow there, and we'll grow everything out of that.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I wish you nothing but more success. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to put out in the future, my man.
Well, I appreciate it. And thanks for the kicks in the ass along the way. So your audience knows we chat once in a while and try to give each other a little boosts and stuff, meetings of the minds. And so, John, thanks for everything you're doing too, man.
Glad to be here. Glad to be of help,
What's that?
Glad to be here and glad to be of help to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you both.
All right, folks. Thank you so much. Basically, we can all be more kind. We can all get along more. We can all love more. So let's see a little bit more of that world. Let's see a little bit more in this world. Like and subscribe to our YouTube. If you're on iTunes, please leave us 5 stars. That really helps the show grow. Thank you guys so much. We love you. We'll see you next week.